Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode 11 of the Look Out Sir 40k podcast. We've gone all Christmassy because 'tis the season, and also because we went to Grand Tournament Heat 3 at Warhammer World for the Warhammer 40,000 Grand Tournament, and we spent quite a considerable amount of time talking about it, and it turns out it's incredibly complicated to get about 6 hours of content onto YouTube. We've had to break this down. So if any of you are curious why none of our episodes, or rather our episode 11, turned up on Saturday, it's because we had a logistical error with trying to get 6 hours of content onto YouTube. So what we've ended up doing is what you can see here, which is one of our segments of the Look Out Sir 40k podcast, episode 11, where we're going to be talking about the Grand Tournament Heat 3, our individual armies and performance within the tournament. Now, spoilers, I don't mean to be bold when I say this, but I will say this boldly. I did win that tournament, which is quite incredible. And if you want to hear about that, that'll be in one of the episodes. Funny story, the way I'm kind of recording this is I'm using this same pattern at the start of every one. So if you've had to listen to this 5 times over, sorry about that. But essentially, this episode will be about Joe's Mixed Imperium, though obviously mostly Mechanicus, although to be fair, he had more knights than he had Mechanicus, so to say it was a Mechanicus army is probably being unfair. Plus also Celestine was in there, so, you know, it's really just a Mixed Imperium army with mostly knights. But let's see how he got on in this segment now. Woo!
Hello and welcome to our little GT roundup between myself, Tim, and my fabulous partner, Joe.
Hello.
Say hello. Hey, there we go. Sorry?
Well, I'd like to be the partner. It's nice.
Yeah, well, you are. This is a team effort, as I felt our success in the GT was also a team collaboration somehow, as we both rocked in the corner. But we'll get to that in a minute. If you haven't guessed, this is our little chat about our armies and what we did and all the fun and games that came with each mission, where we try to outwit and outplay our opponents. And you'll see how that goes in a minute. So, Joe, take us through your army for those who don't remember what you were going to take and how you were planning to play it.
Well, compared to when I actually spoke about my army in a podcast many, many moons ago, it changed quite considerably.
As expected.
Yeah, as expected, because I did it and then I realised that it was terrible, so I changed it. So... To start off with, I had an Adeptus Mechanicus battalion, which had a Tech Priest Dominus and a Tech Priest Engineer. I had 2 squads of 10 Skitarii Vanguard and 1 squad of 7 and a Onega Dune Crawler. And then I had a super heavy detachment with an Imperial Knight Warden and 3 Armiger Helverins. One was on its own, and then there was 1 unit of 2. And then for the lols, I had a patrol of Sisters of Battle with 1 squad of 5 sisters, and then Celestine with 1 of her Gemini.
Yes, Celestine. Yes. Joe and I had a little test play against this, and it was my first experience of Celestine, and I rather enjoyed her coming back on a 2-up, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, it's a 2-up. She double moves a turn. She's got 7 wounds, 4 up invuln, 2 up save, and 6 attacks at strength 7 with a 2 damage power sword. She's an absolute monster.
Oh, she's evil.
Yeah, and I put her in there just for that, because she's just ridiculous. She could be in your opponent's deployment zone turn 1, harassing backline units, or she can go straight for that warlord kill. She's one of those units that your opponent just has to deal with, and if they don't deal with her, it's just a headache for everyone. My warlord was actually the warden with the Iron Bulwark warlord trait, and he had the relic of the Endless Fury, and that was mainly just to save on command points.
Right, Okay.
Yeah, because I could have made my tech priest Dominus the warlord, but he didn't really bring much to the table. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to spend a command point to make the warden a character and give him a warlord trait, and then I'm going to have to pay another command point to give him a relic. So I thought I'll cut out the middleman and just make the warlord in charge.
Yeah, well, you might as well. He's a big old beast as well.
Yeah.
So he's not exactly going to go down easy. Or
No.
so I assume.
Well, he died in pretty much like every game apart from 2.
All right.
He died in 3 out of 2 games. He died because he's a fairly big target, but also he's a massive toughness 8 target or a 3-up invulnerable save, so he can tank a lot of wounds.
It must have taken people like a fair amount to bring him down, though.
Oh god, yeah. It was never an easy ride for most people. One of my opponents, who was running Ad Mech, who was my first opponent, managed to kill him. But that was just through mortal wounds. That's like the easiest way of dealing with them, because by ignoring the saves.
Yeah, very, very true. So the first mission was resupply drop, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So did you get the first turn? Like, how did it all go?
So my first opponent was against an Ad Mech guy. He was running pure Ad Mech. It was a very nice list. It had loads of rangers in it. He had Belisarius Cool with the obligatory 5 Castellan robots. The unit of Iron Striders, the guys with the lances, and then he had another unit of the Ballistari ones. The ones that have the twin las cannons. You know, 5 of those.
Oh right.
Cannons, and they put in some work. And he was a really good player. I was going to go first, and then he seized on me. Stared at him across the table. I was like, "Of course you did."
Of course you did. Did you die a little bit inside when he sees that 1 in 6 chance?
I wept a little bit inside, and I was like, "That's fine. I can live with this." And then first turn, he did what I would have done. He was running a small detachment of Styges with the guys with the lances, and they basically moved 9 inches for free before the game started, and then they moved their 10 inches, and then they charged straight into my knight. After shooting it a lot, and just a bucket load of mortal wounds to it, and pretty much just killed him. It was horrific, and it didn't go very well. But apart from losing the knight, I still pretty much felt that I had a good chance. In my turn, I double moved Celestine right into the middle of his army, right next to Belisarius Cool and the unit of the Castellans. And I actually managed to kill 2 of the Castellans from shooting, which exploded and did 4 wounds to Cool. I thought, this is my time. And for some reason, in my head, I was like, what I could do is I could charge Cool, kill him because he's not got that many wounds left, and then comfortably move on to consolidate into the Castellans, stopping them from shooting, and then I can deal the rest of his army damage because the Castellans can't leave combat.
Yes.
And for some reason, I just charged the Castellans, which just overwatched her to death. And then I was like, "What's a penis?" and then from then, the Castellans did what they do, and they just gunned down most of the stuff in my army. And then I managed to kill off the Lance Iron Striders, but the ones with the las cannons just sat at the back of the board, and then just comfortably took out a lot of my units.
How did your Doom Crawler do in that matchup? Did it manage
to survive and
sit back?
He got killed by the las cannon guys. He took out a Castellan that game, and he also took out one of the las cannon Iron Striders. Like, he consistently does well all the time.
Yeah.
But I lost that game due to my own incompetence. But to be fair, I had about 4 hours sleep the night before from sleeping on the world's most uncomfortable sofa. So I'm going to blame that on.
You did look a bit tired in the morning when I first saw you.
Yeah.
So I guess we can put part of the blame down to that, as well as a bit of your own incompetence, as you've just said. Not digging at all. Before we move on to the next match, how did the objectives end up? Did it end up in your favour at all? Because obviously you have to burn some.
So the ones I chose, I was like, well, I'm going to choose the 2 in no man's land and the 1 in his deployment zone.
Right.
Because then hopefully it's the 1 in no man's land, which is near me, and I can get rid of one of his deployment zone ones. And of course, they're all the 1 in his deployment zone. And then when he rolled for them, he was left with 2 in my deployment zone and 1 in his. And he rolled the 1 in his deployment zone. And I was like, well, that's definitely game because I'm never going to get there now.
Yeah. I guess he castled up and just...
Yeah. He just castled around it, defended them, and stopped me from getting in. But if I hadn't made the mistake with Celestine, I might have been able to to kill the las cannon robots, and not have to worry about the shooty castellans, and that would have been fine, because I probably could have tabled him from that. But with those castellans in the middle of the table just shooting me, it was game over from there.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, so what about mission number 2 then? Ascension, I believe it was.
Ascension, I played against one of my now favourite human beings named Ray.
I met Ray. Ray was a great guy.
Ray was great, and he was running an Ultramarines army.
Beautifully painted as well.
It was beautifully painted, and the thing I loved about Ray's army is it was all the units from Dark Imperium, plus Guilliman, a Redemptor Dreadnought, and the Primaris Psyker. And then just to fill out the battalion, he added another unit of Intercessors and 5 more Hellblasters. It was super simple. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even take a close look at his list. I was just in awe of how cleanly painted his models were. They kind of reminded me of Sean's army, actually, in fact. Not to Sean.
They were very similar next to each other.
Yeah.
And it was a super simple, really nice army. And I was talking to him, and he said he'd taken it to a couple of events recently, and he cleared up and won loads of games. So I think he was looking to do the same with this one.
Yeah.
At this event, though, I think he was a bit more of his depth because of how hardcore a lot of people were going.
It was super hardcore.
Yeah, and but no, I ended up beating him. I actually tabled him in the end, just because I got first turn on him, and then my Honor June Crawler aced his Redemptor Dreadnought.
Yeah.
But that was turn 2 actually. So first turn, I moved the knight into the middle of the table and killed all of his Hellblasters and a unit of Intercessors, and charged Celestine in and killed off a few more guys. And she spent most of the game running around the backboard.
Were you not tempted to charge her into Girly Man just to see what would happen?
God, no. Oh, God, no. It was horrific. So basically what happened is I moved her into the prime position to charge the Hellblasters and the unit of Intercessors.
Yeah, right. So
the Imperial Knight killed all of the Intercessors in one round of shooting. He had 9 of them, and it killed every single one. But I completely forgetting, he had an Ancient stood near to them, and 7 of them rolled 4-ups, and they all rapid fire overcharged shooting at Celestine. With Gilliman stood nearby, they were re-rolling all their misses and their wounds, and they actually took 6 wounds off her, leaving her with 1 wound, and it was horrible.
That's pretty brutal.
Yeah, so she was dropped, so I kind of play it a bit safe with her.
Had you already popped your come back to life thing by then?
No, so she lived, and she died Ray's first turn.
Okay.
Psychic powers. He killed her off with Smite. And then he charged Gilliman and the Redemptor Dreadnought into my knight, and he killed it. And then in return, the Honor Gajoon Caller just popped the Redemptor in one shot, and my Helvrins cleaned up the rest of the infantry. I thought I left Gilliman to the end. I gave him a nice wide berth. And then
as every gentleman does.
Yeah, and just kind of fed him a unit to keep him where he was a turn. And then we kind of gave up on the missions there, and basically it was a case of how long Gilliman could hold out. And I eventually killed him in the end. And it was a really good game, and I won that one. I can't remember by how many points, but it was, I think we stopped counting after a while.
If you tabled him, it's probably for the best.
And then...
what turn did you table him by, out of interest?
I think it was end of turn 3.
Okay.
It was over, really. Let's see if I can find my scorecard.
So fairly quick then. It wasn't like super speedy turn 2 table kind of thing, but it was still pretty efficient though.
It was still pretty efficient. I think after a while we realised where the game was going, and then kind of slowed down and had a drink, and we were chatting quite a lot. So
yeah, enjoying your time.
Game, and Ray was great, and he took it like a champ, and it was great. And then round 3,
Frontline Warfare.
Frontline Warfare was the last game. I kind of came off my last because I thought, I'll be in a Gilliman list. I came up to high, walked up to the table turn 3, and it was versus 3 knights and a guard battalion. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Was it the Loyal 32 or?
Loyal 32.
Yeah.
But it was more like 38 because there was just loads of on his back line. He was running the Forge World Atropos Knight, which is an absolute beast.
Oh, that's a nice knight. That
it is a beautiful knight, and it performs incredibly well. And he was running a Castellan and a Gallant, and having played a lot with knights and played against Dan a lot, who is very good at fighting knights, I kind of had an idea of like, well, this is what I'm going to do. And I got to play the long game in this. So he had the first turn. I had the first turn, and then he seized on me.
No!
He proper had me on that one. So before the game started and before he moved, I basically used my Styges stratagem on one of my 10-man units of Vanguard. To basically screen off between 2 buildings which were in my deployment zone so that he couldn't get through. So his only option was to charge across the table and into them. So he was kind of stuck. And then I spent what I did was, after he kind of killed a load in combat, but he couldn't kill enough because of my 6-up invuln. And then used the rest of my squads basically to segregate the Atropos and the Gallant, so the Gallant couldn't actually get through into my deployment zone, so I could try and deal with the Atropos, but the thing wouldn't bloody die because of its 4-up invuln in combat. It's a beast. It's such a beast.
I've yet to face one. Like when I came up against the Castellan in the GT, that was a horrifying experience. So.
And it went to 5 turns. And by the end of turn 5, all I had on the table was a unit of 4 Skitarii Vanguard, a Tech Priest Enginseer, my Tech Priest Dominus, and my Honor Gajoon Crawler on 1 wound. And I held the 2 middle objectives and the objective in my deployment zone, and he still had a full tooled up Castellan and 3 squads of guard in his deployment zone. And the reason I stayed alive is because I just hid in these 2 buildings in my deployment zone. behind walls so he couldn't see me.
Well,
It's
smart
been
move.
to shoot at for like 2 turns, and then turn 5, I just ran all my stuff onto objectives.
Yeah.
The game ends here, I win. He rolled the dice and he rolled another 6.
Oh,
It's over now. It's all horribly over. And he tabled me from there. But it was so close. It's one of those weird situations. I was like, I just need you to roll a 1 or a 2. That's all I need.
Just anything but a 3 or more. It sounds from like the situation that you played it as best you could coming towards that end turn. I would have done exactly the same thing and just ran my troops onto the objectives. If you've got hardly anything left, you kind of have to go all or nothing, really.
But I knew that the moment that my big knight died, and I was put in so much firepower into taking down these 2 knights that were running around in my deployment zone and feeding them units to keep them blocked off so I could deal with one at a time. It was just a declining loss of a battle. And I was like, if I win this, it's going to be by the skin of my teeth.
By the sounds of it, it sounds like you're tackling them in the right way, though.
Yeah. And I think we'll talk about the end, but there's things in my list that I'd probably go around changing. An all infantry list would have probably been better for me, or having more knights would have done. But
we'll do that at the end. So at the end, sorry,
he tabled me in the end. He was a nice guy. He offered me a pint.
Well, that always suits things.
I declined because I was so brain dead by then. It was it, and my games always ended before everyone else. So I'd walk around to see you or Dan or Phil or Richie, and they were doing better than me. And I was like, God, I hate you all.
So at the end of day 1, how are you feeling?
End of day 1, I had two losses and a win. There were 3 great battles, but I was like, I knew that I wasn't going to qualify because you need 4 wins. But I thought, maybe I can get 2 wins tomorrow, and with some good votes, I might be able to qualify by like the very skin of my teeth. But now I was just playing for funsies.
I feel like you kind of have to stay positive and not get too salty about the whole thing. As soon as you start getting salty, and I felt myself doing this towards the end of day 3 just because I was so drained, it does start to ruin the event, and you kind of just have to brush it off and just go, no, you know what, I'm just going to try and have as fun as I can and play it as tactically as tactically sound as I can as well, and then the dice will land where they will.
You can't take it too seriously, because once those little green demons start ebbing their way in, it is a bugger to shift them, because that can take a really fun weekend with the lads and just flip it on its head, and you're having the worst time ever.
Yeah, definitely. Okay then, so day 2, another fresh day, a good night's sleep, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I pulled a mattress down from upstairs to avoid the snorers, and I slept on the floor of the living room, and it was incredible in comparison to the night before. It was a good night's sleep. We had our delicious honey loops in the morning.
We did.
We started off in a good mood. The best way to start.
Yes. And then you came to your 4th table.
My 4th game, which was against a Knights and Space Wolf player.
Interesting.
John. And I think he was one of the Hull's Angels guys that was...
I saw a few of those guys dotting about.
There's quite a few of them knocking about, and they're all using the same like XVII dice or something they were all running.
Okay.
and he was running a Gallant and 2 Helverins like me. And then he had a Space Wolves detachment, which was a bunch of Grey Hunters, a Storm Wolf, the big dog-headed fly thing.
Okay.
And then a Wolf Lord on a Thunder Wolf, and
Cavalry backup?
No, he had like 8 or 9 Wolfen with Thunderhammer Storm Shields and Lightning Claws with a Priest, and they were in the flyer. And I was like, I got this. I can deal with this list. I know how it works. I know what to do. And I was like, I'm going first. And then he seized on me.
Oh no!
No! Like 3 games. I was like, this can't be happening.
What are the chances?
Yeah. So he did the right thing. He did what I would have done. So he full tilted his Gallant up the table. And I knew he was going to do this, so I tried to screen off best I could with my Skitarii by doing the free movement. He full tilted him so he could move, advance, and then charge. And I couldn't screen enough. And he managed to slip through this tiny gap into my knight. He charged into 2 of my Helverins, and he just tore him to shreds with the Gallant, because that's what the Gallant does. He was like, I put 3 attacks on one, 2 on the other, and just absolutely crushed them.
Yeah, because this was dominate and destroy, so you're getting extra victory points for each unit you killed as well.
Yeah, and then I ran in and hit the Gallant with my knight, and he was rolling nothing but 5s and 6s. Like the whole game, he was rolling so hot. All my shooting wasn't going through his shields. And when the stuff that was getting through his shields, he was making like 6-up saves for his armor, like crazy.
Yeah, those impossible saves.
So yeah, after a while, I was just like, I wish I had some of those dice.
I think we all wish we had some of those dice somewhere.
Yeah, Celestine did what she does, and she flew into his back lines and kind of dealt with all the Grey Hunter units and his Wolf Lord that was holding on. But in the end, it was the Helverins that just blew her out of the sky. But yeah, and I ended up getting tabled at the end of that one.
What turn was that?
That was turn 4 or 5. It just went sideways very, very quickly.
I guess you can take some solace in the fact that you managed to get his Warlord, though. So
yeah, I managed to take his Warlord down. But yeah, it was just, if he hadn't seized on me, it would have been fine, because we counted off the units, and I was like, oh, I get a +1, so I can bank quite highly on getting that first turn. And I did get the first turn, and then I lost it. And then I had some very choice words about seize the initiative afterwards. So I was like, it's got
just need to get rid of it. It's a stupid rule.
Yeah, but thankfully, during that, halfway through that game, I'd say the end of turn 1, turn 2. I can never remember his name, but he's the colonel from Tabletop Tactics, and he now works for GW at their head office. And he came over. He does, yeah. And he was like, "Did you play in your army yourself, Joe?" And I was like, "Yes, I did. It's taken me months." And he was like, "We'd like to nominate you for best painted army." And I was like, "I love you." And I wanted to. I don't think that he felt comfortable with the idea of me touching him, because I'm a big sweaty man, and he was like, "No." But no, I got nominated for the best army, which was great, because that really picked me up. Because I was like, this game's going horribly, but I've been going to Warhammer World events now for 4 or 5 years, and that's all I've wanted to do, is get in that cabinet. And Phil does it all the time. He does it for the lols. And some of us actually have to work really hard with our painting, because he just does it. And he got in there, and I was super chuffed. I was like, I don't care if I lose this game now. I'm just punch drunk happy. It's all good.
Making the best of a bad situation, I guess.
Definitely.
But to get in the cabinet itself is quite an accolade. So
no
wonder you're on a high.
Yeah. And it's something I've been going for a long time. It was one of those, like, I'm not going to qualify, but I'm going to take something away from this.
Hey man, it's better than like not getting anything at all. So you take what you can away from these events, especially after this event where this was my first GT, and I did hear rumours of this was a pretty brutal GT, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah, we've done GTs in the past. We've done other events in the past, and this was the most competitive one that we've ever been to. And like all the YouTubers and stuff were there, and all the heavy hitters. So and then it wasn't going to be an easy free ride.
Yeah. So what about your last game then? Scorched Earth.
Scorched Earth. I went into it, and I was still pretty hefty, and I was like, it's going to be fun. If I win this one, I win this one. If I lose this one, I lose this one. And I came up against a really nice guy playing Necrons. And I didn't write down his name. And I got first turn through the old fashioned rolling it, and they didn't seize on me.
Yes. So far, so good.
Yes, it was amazing. And he was running the Necron dynasty of I get an additional -1 when shooting you at half range, which I think is Dynat. We'll go with
I think it is
Mefrit. That's the one. It's Mefrit. He was running Mefrit, and his army had a unit of 6 Wraiths, and he had a massive blob unit of like 8 destroyers, I think.
Yeah, pretty standard.
Had a unit of 10 Immortals and 2 massive 20-man blobs of warriors.
Yeah.
And a bunch of Cryptex. And 2 Doomsday Arcs, the big compensator cannon tanks.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you had any Doomsday Arcs.
And I was like, "Oh, this is going to suck really bad." But like first turn, I went and my two armigers took out the Wraiths.
Right.
Straight off the bat, it was
Good
savage. He failed so many of his 3-up rolls, but because the Armiger Helverins are damage free, each failed was just a dead one. And then the combined firepower of my Knight plus 2 of my units of Skitarii Vanguard just killed a whole 20-man unit of warriors. I was like, I'm not letting these guys go, because even if 1 or 2 of them survive and he pays the command points for them, he'll automatically pass his morale. And then boom, you've got another 10, 15 more warriors to deal with.
Yeah, reanimation protocols.
And then my Onager took out 2 destroyers in the back, just kind of keep their numbers down. And then
did you find the destroyers like painful at all? Because I had a test game against destroyers and I just focused them down because I was scared.
They didn't do much at all, because their best job is to fight big vehicles, and my armigers at the back, because I didn't want them to really get involved with them, so they only could deal with the Knight itself. But they've got lots of shots, but they're only wounding it on 5s. So, and then I had a 3-up save against it, so it just wasn't doing much work.
Yeah, by the sounds of it, can't do a lot.
Yeah. And then Celestine ran in and killed a bunch of warriors and just kind of made a nuisance of herself. And then,
I've just got this mental image of Celestine just hacking away like a like
just
the yeah. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but the Anakin Skywalker on Robot Chicken sort of sketch where he's killing the younglings and he's just in the daisy field. That's how I imagine Celestine at the moment.
Yeah, she was doing so much damage. It was going so textbook right for me that it got to the stage where I just felt sorry for the guy, because he just wasn't getting his rolls. And then his return, he fired both his Doomsday Arcs at my knight. Obviously, I rotated Iron Shields for the 3-up save, and I think only one went through in the end. Knight's command point re-rolled it, and just nothing happened.
So did he shoot both of them at your knight, or did he shoot one and then you rotated and then you shot the other one? Do you remember?
He shot the first one and I rotated, and then he shot the second one at it.
He should have changed. He should have changed.
Yeah, he could have He might have been able to take down one of the armigers quite happily, but he just didn't have the luck. And then in my turn 2, I took out the rest of his warriors and the destroyers. And I thought the Doomsday Arcs are doing. I'll leave them till last, just because they've only got D6 shots each, and their biggest threat is to the knight, and he can take it. And then by the end of turn 3, I'd taken those out, and I had tabled him. And but unfortunately for him, Necrons just aren't in a good place. If he'd gone first, it would have gone a lot more in my favour. I don't think it would have gone. I think I still would have won. I don't think he would have been able to do all the damage.
They are in a bit of a terrible place, just points-wise at the moment. And hopefully the chapter approved will sort of address some of this, but
but they really need the help. So I ended it with 2 wins and 3 losses, but I was happy. I learned a lot. Like I said, talking to Dan, it's one of those every loss is a lesson, and just learn from it. Like, I never again will charge a unit of Castellans with anything if there is another enemy unit stood next to it. Because I'll always charge that other unit and then consolidate and shut that unit down and stuff.
No, it makes absolute sense. That's half the battle, though, is just knowing what to do in certain situations, and then knowing all the little nuances that you can do as well, just to make your army that little bit more survivable, or get that extra attack in. That might make all the difference. So
if I've got any advice to anyone, the night before an event, have an early night. Bed.
Yes.
And you'll be fine.
Yeah. So taking everything you've learned then, and you touched on this a little bit earlier on, like, what would you change about your list now? And let's just ignore like the 2018 missions. Yeah, the new missions.
Changing, like, if I was going to change, like, I took Celestine because she is a hammer, but also she's got Sisters of Battle have got a stratagem where it's 1 CP, and on a 4-up you can cancel a psychic power. Just dead, kill it flat.
Yes.
And I never used it the entire weekend because I only came up against one army that had a psycho in it, and he spent the entire game like buffing guard units. So I kind of think that I wouldn't have taken her, and I wouldn't have taken the sisters. And for that points cost, I probably could have got in some Armiger Warglaves. And the Onager, it was consistent at doing damage and hurting things, but it always ended up being in combat. And it took a lot of damage. But playing against knights, I think having Armiger Warglaves would have been better, because they're a really good combat unit. So I think overall, I dropped the Onager, dropped the sisters, put into Warglaves, and then bump up the Skitara units for capturing objectives. For that all-round kind of work.
Yeah, interesting, because I would have thought you would have kept the Dune Crawler just for that backyard threat. But then again, you've still got the Knight, haven't you? So
I've got the Knight, and I've still got the Helverins. But the Helverins put in a lot of work. Like they consistently take out flyers. They're really good at killing big multi-wound models, but also units like Primaris, stuff like that. They've got a lot of range on the top of a Dune Crawler. And because there's so many big things in the game that you're shooting at, so many of them have invulnerable saves as well. It's like shooting at a knight. It has a 3-up invulnerable save, or a 4-up invulnerable save. Or shooting at little knights, they're on a 5-up. So a Dune Crawler having 1 or 3 shots often goes to waste as well. But when it goes through, it does a hell of a lot of damage. Whereas a Helverin does a lot of damage per shot, but it has lots of shots. The negative is only the -1.
Yeah, I compare the Dune Crawler to my Tyrannofix in a way. It's kind of like when it hits, it hits like a truck when it works, but when it doesn't, it is just a bit of a lackluster. Because is the Dune Crawler like 3 shots or is it 3d3?
It's D3 shots.
It's D3 shots, yeah.
It's 3 shots, whereas the Warglaive, it is D3 shots as well, but it's a movement of 14. It's got a melted gun on top, so you've essentially got 1 plus D3 shots with melter. But it's also got 4 attacks in combat with a strength 12 -3 flat 3 damage weapon. So there's times when I played against the Knights, which trapped the Dune Crawler, which couldn't do anything in response. If I had 2 Warglaives on the table, I could have actually killed the other Knights quite comfortably.
You could have punched back.
Yeah, I could have punched back.
Can you not get a charge off with them as well? Is there a stratagem?
Yeah, you can get a charge off with them first turn quite comfortably because they've got a 14-inch move. They can cross over half the table and leave you with, at worst, a 10-inch charge.
Yeah.
Or you can full tilt them, so it'll be 14 inches plus the D6 and then advance them. But that's better saved for a big knight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting stuff. It's nice to hear like how you've learned from the experience and how you're going to adapt your list. Obviously, this is all going to change when we look at the 2018 missions, because I've been hearing some interesting things about them.
Yeah, I think in the future, looking at chapter approved, I think I'm probably going to get more infantry, like another unit of 10. Vanguard. I'd quite like to get the Secretary Hoplites from Forge World, the guys with the shields and the spears.
Ooh, they are quite pretty.
Because they're beautiful models, and also you can take a unit of 20 of them. They've got a 4-up save with a strength 6 gun, which is like -1 D3 damage against vehicles. And they'd be a really good blocker unit against things like knights. Also, I think having a lot more infantry on the table allows you to hide in buildings and take away a lot of power from knights as well.
Yeah, very, very much so. I was doing a bit of, I don't want to say map hammer, but I was just working out the points cost between 2 different types of units. And it's kind of like for me, a set of warriors, which is like 9 wounds, I can get like 20 termagants, which is 20 wounds, just sitting in the building. Like, fair enough, they might not do much, but it's still 20 wounds that a player has to churn through. So
there's so many armies in the game that can put out a ridiculous number of shots that you kind of need those extra wounds to soak them up, so that you've got more models left at the end.
Yeah, definitely, and with the rumours of the new CA, as it were, it seems like infantry heavy lists are going to be, I don't want to, a little bit favoured. I think you're going to have to have a little bit of flavour in there as well. I don't think it's going to cure any armies. I still think the top tiers are still going to be top tier lists. But we'll see. Do you have a model of the match? I want to say man of the match, but model of the match?
Well, it'd have to be Celestine. Like, she was consistent at just killing through stuff.
Yeah.
And I think learning a lot more about her before we went to the event, because I only got about 5 or 6 games with her. I think if I'd actually proper nuanced her, I could have got a lot more out of her. Unfortunately, I don't think that she's going to be as good going forward in chapter approved.
Well, you never know. you might see a resurgence of her suddenly coming back into the meta.
But I think after this event, and like I didn't win Best Painted. I was happy to take away the nomination, and I kind of think now going forward to the next event, I'm going to try and do an army that's a potential winner. So I'm doing Death Watch for that. But
ooh, interesting.
Yeah. So, but the Knight Mechanicum list is solid, but it's not a tournament winner. It hasn't got the raw amount of shooting in it that is required.
It hasn't got all the tools you need, pretty
Oh,
much. I think that's the biggest thing I could take away from that weekend, but I'll speak about that on another time. Saying that, I think we've covered everything, unless you've got anything more to add, Monsieur.
I am all good.
Yeah. This is good. Well, I look forward to our next little tournament, and hopefully we'll do better.
We will do better. We'll come away qualifying or winning.
just winning, Joe. Winning would be a start.
Yeah.
But all right then. Well, thank you very much for everybody to listening to this section, and we shall see you in the next bit. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Dan, you're still there.
Where was the transitional noises? What happened there?
We don't do transitional noises. That's your job.
It is my job. It's your job. Come on, give us a transitional noise.
There you go.
Well, I didn't hear nothing. Come on. And that there concludes this segment of the Lookout Sir 40k podcast, episode 11. Thank you as always to everyone who supports the show and checks us out here on YouTube. If you would like to listen to the show, or the podcast rather, in its entirety, please go over to Spotify or iTunes or any of the other available podcast platforms and check us out in our entirety. Otherwise, there will be other episodes of this broken down into all the various sections here on YouTube. So if you'd like to listen to more of the content from the Grand Tournament Heat 3, please either check out the full podcast available on all the various podcast providers that we work with. Not to say we work with them, that would imply that we're actually getting some sort of revenue out of this situation, which I assure you, we are not. But nonetheless, check us out on all the podcast platforms that we choose to pay to put ourselves on. And obviously, please let us know what you think throughout the process and so on. We're always appreciative of the comments and obviously, really appreciate all the support. So this potentially is the last podcast that we'll put out in 2018. There is talk of us doing some kind of roundup thing that may or may not end up on the YouTube channel / podcast providers before the end of the year, but I have to be honest, I'm not entirely hopeful, so I wouldn't want to promise it, but I will throw it out there as something that might happen, because you never know what might happen. Depends how we feel and how it goes. But we really hope you've enjoyed our roundup of Warhammer World's Warhammer 40,000 Grand Tournament Heat 3. Obviously, huge thank you to Games Workshop and to Warhammer World for putting on what was an absolutely fantastic event. Me and all the guys absolutely loved the weekend. We had a fantastic time, and as we've probably laboured the point throughout the process, we would encourage any one of you listening to this, if you're able to do so, to attend some in the future, because they're super fun. So with that all said, thank you very much. Have a fantastic Christmas and or New Year's, depending on how this all goes. As I said before, we don't exactly know. But nonetheless, hope you have a great one. Thank you very much for all the continued support, and we'll hopefully chat to you very, very soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.